Have you ever wondered why the people who have everything still feel nothing? Have you ever looked at someone whose life appears complete, the wealth, the comfort, the freedom, and sensed the quiet emptiness hiding behind their eyes? Have you ever asked yourself why those who reach the top often carry the heaviest sorrow? Pause. Let the question settle. Because this isn't a question about money. It's a question about you. About the hunger that keeps waking you up in the middle of the night. About the restless longing you can't name. About the strange, echoing silence that follows every victory you've ever earned. It is the silence that terrifies you. The silence that exposes you. The silence that wealth cannot erase. And somewhere inside you, beneath all the layers of wanting and striving, you already know this. You felt it in fleeting moments. Moments when the world should have made sense, but instead felt hollow. You've experienced it in victories that tasted like dust, in achievements that dissolved the moment they were grasped, in the strange grief that follows success, as if you lost something instead of gaining it. A quiet voice inside you whispers, "Is this all?" And you silence it with noise, with plans, with goals, with desires that multiply like shadows. But the question returns again and again, softly at first, then sharper, stronger, more insistent. Why does satisfaction slip through your fingers like water? Why does desire feel endless? A thirst that grows the more you drink. Schopenhauer called it the pendulum, a swing between pain and boredom, between wanting and possessing, between agony and emptiness. He said that the more you want, the more you suffer. And the more you have, the more you are swallowed by the void. It's a cruel rhythm, a quiet curse. And if you close your eyes long enough, you can feel that pendulum inside you, swaying, pulling, dragging your inner world between longing and loss. You've felt it. You know you have. The desire that burns. The achievement that cools. The boredom that returns like winter. Want. Get. Dullness. Repeat. You thought wealth would break the cycle. You thought abundance would silence the hunger. But desire is not a fire that extinguishes. It's a fire that expands. And every time you feed it, it grows another mouth. Pause. Let the truth breathe. Because this isn't about condemning wealth. It's about revealing the strange shape of human longing. How we keep chasing horizons that move as we walk. How we mistake comfort for meaning and accumulation for peace. You've seen it in others. The rich man who cannot sleep. The powerful woman who cannot rest. The successful friend who confesses quietly, "I don't feel joy anymore." You've seen the price of getting what you want. And it terrifies you, even if you rarely admit it. Because the fear is not simply that you won't become rich. The deeper fear, the one you never say out loud, is that you will and still feel the same. Still restless, still hungry, still incomplete. What if all your striving tool is built on a misunderstanding of the human heart? What if wealth does not liberate you, but binds you more tightly to yourself? What if winning at life is simply another way of losing touch with life? You can feel the weight of that question now, like a soft pressure on your chest, like a hand gently turning your face inward. Because beneath all your goals and ambitions is a deeper longing, not for money, not for status, but for peace, for quiet, for rest, for an end to the pendulum. But you don't know how to stop it. You don't know how to escape the rhythm. You only know how to move with it, hoping one day it will slow. And yet, no matter how far you go, no matter how much you earn, the pendulum continues its swing. It is within you. It is you. The hunger that drives you. The boredom that follows you. The fear that haunts you. Pause again. You feel that, don't you? The subtle ache that this truth reveals. The quiet recognition. The sense that you've been living inside a loop. Not of your choosing, but of your nature. You've carried this question your entire life. It has shaped your dreams, your habits, your self-worth. And tonight, for the first time, you are finally willing to look at it. Slowly, honestly, without hiding. Because to understand why the rich are miserable, you must first understand why you are restless. And to understand the curse of wealth, you must understand the curse of wanting. This is where the journey begins, with a question you can no longer ignore. A question that hangs in the dim light between your thoughts. If everything I chase leaves me empty, what am I really chasing? Silence. Let the question echo. Let it open the door, because once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. And once you see the pendulum, your awakening has already begun. Listen closely now, because what comes next isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It isn't meant to shake you from the outside. It's meant to reveal the thing that has been quietly shaping your life from the inside. The pendulum Schopenhauer warned about, the law beneath all your longing, the unseen machinery of desire that governs your joy, your sorrow, your ambition, your disappointment. Breathe. Feel the shift. We are entering the cycle itself. Observation, the machinery of wanting. You wake up wanting. You go to sleep wanting. Not always money. Sometimes attention. Sometimes approval. Sometimes meaning. Sometimes simply a different feeling than the one you have right now. Wanting is the engine, the pulse, the background hum of being human. And yet, wanting hurts. It stretches you. It tightens your chest. It makes the present moment feel insufficient. It whispers, what you have is not enough. Who you are is not enough. Life begins elsewhere. You know the voice. You followed it for years. You've mistaken it for purpose, for destiny, for drive. But the truth is simpler, darker. Wanting is rarely about the object. It is about the tension. The tension becomes the identity. And when the object arrives, the tension disappears. And with it, your sense of direction. Realization. The pleasure that disappears too quickly. You know that feeling, don't you? The moment after you achieve something you thought would change you. The silence. The flatness. The strange emotional vacuum. You thought it would feel like triumph. Instead, it felt like exhaling into a void. The world did not shift. Your inner landscape did not transform. You were still you, carrying the same ache, the same fears, the same emptiness. You thought you wanted freedom. What you wanted was control. Control over uncertainty. Control over fear. Control over the shifting sands of your own identity. You thought you were living. You were only running. Running from silence. Running from stillness. Running from yourself. Because to stop would mean facing the truth you've been avoiding. The achievement did not change you. It only postponed the next cycle. Observation. The pendulum's first swing. Schopenhauer said, life swings between pain and boredom, between desire and emptiness. The first swing is pain. The ache of wanting, the stretch of longing, the suffering of not yet. Pain is the beginning of every desire. It is the friction you feel when you believe your life is incomplete. You tell yourself, when I get this, I'll feel whole. When I reach that, everything will make sense. When I become this, I will finally be enough. But all these sentences begin with one assumption. You are not enough now. This is the first illusion, the first sting, the first wound. Pain moves you forward. Pain fuels your ambition. Pain creates the story of your future self. And so the pendulum swings. Realization, the second swing, boredom. And then you get what you wanted. For a moment, joy sparkles. For a moment, pleasure fills your lungs. For a moment, the world feels full. But moments deceive. Moments vanish. Soon the object becomes familiar, then ordinary, then invisible. Pleasure evaporates like breath on cold glass. The excitement dissolves. The mind adapts. The heart numbs. And there it is. Boredom, the dull ache of having. The silence after triumph. The emptiness of no longer needing to chase. Boredom is not rest. It is restlessness with no direction. It is the soul without a story to tell itself. So the mind does what the mind always does. It creates a new desire, a new hunger, a new horizon, and the pendulum swings again. Observation. Wealth magnifies the pendulum. Now imagine this cycle. Not once a year, but every day. Imagine having the ability to satisfy every desire instantly. Imagine never having to wait, never having to earn, never having to struggle. At first, it feels like paradise. Then it becomes a trap. Because wealth does not silence desire. It multiplies it. It accelerates it. It removes the friction that once gave life its texture, its meaning, its sense of progress. The poor man suffers from lack. The rich man suffers from excess. One is starving. The other is drowning. Different suffering. Same root. Because the pendulum does not disappear with wealth. It only swings faster. The rich man doesn't escape the cycle. He lives inside a version of it that moves too quickly for peace, too loudly for stillness, too endlessly for satisfaction. He is not cursed because he has wealth. He is cursed because he believed wealth would stop the pendulum. Realization, the invisible prison. Here's the quiet truth you rarely hear. A person who can satisfy every desire loses the ability to value anything. When everything is accessible, nothing has weight. Nothing holds depth. Nothing pierces the heart. The pendulum becomes a blur, a restless swing between overstimulation and numbness. This is why the wealthy fall apart. Not because of money, but because the mind, when left without resistance, turns against itself. Desire without obstacles becomes despair. Pleasure without effort becomes emptiness. Freedom without discipline becomes a new form of imprisonment. And so the rich man sits in his quiet, beautiful home, feeling a loneliness deeper than poverty, because he has discovered a truth he cannot name. There is nothing left to chase, and still he is not at peace. The cycle remains, but now it has no purpose, no direction, no narrative. It is pure motion, pure repetition, pure pendulum. Observation the human condition exposed. Look closely at your own life. You don't need to be rich to feel this cycle moving through you. The restlessness, the anticipation, the excitement, the boredom, the disappointment, the hunger returning. It is already here, already shaping your days, already sculpting your identity. We all carry the pendulum within us. We all live between longing and loss. We all suffer from the illusion that the next desire will finally fix what we feel. But desire does not fix. It only distracts. It is the fire that lights your path, while quietly burning your hands. Now you see it. The cycle, the law, the rhythm. You see how wanting creates pain, how having creates boredom, how the pendulum swings between illusions, each promising peace, each dissolving into silence. You see why the rich are miserable, why the successful often break, why those who win at life secretly feel lost. Not because wealth is evil, but because the structure of desire remains untouched. The pendulum never stops by achieving more. It stops when you finally turn inward and notice its movement. But we are not there yet. This is still the revelation, still the outer layer, still the mirror that shows the pattern, but not the one who watches it. To reach that depth, we must go further inward. We must descend. Now, slow down with me. Not because the story weakens here, but because you are about to meet something you have avoided for a very long time. This is the part where the outside world fades, where the noise dissolves, where the chase loosens its grip and your attention turns inward, quietly, gently, almost reluctantly. This is where the understanding stops being philosophical and starts becoming personal. Breathe. Let the air soften your chest. Let your shoulders fall. Let the pendulum slow inside you, even for a moment. We are descending now, into the mirror you've spent your whole life not looking into. When the world grows quiet, your mind gets louder. You know this feeling, the discomfort, the unease, the trembling in the space beneath your thoughts. This is why you stay busy, why you set more goals, why you scroll endlessly, why you chase pleasures that fade too quickly, why you rely on motion to keep the silence away. Because silence feels like exposure, like standing naked before your own truth. But now the silence is here, and there is nowhere else to run. Let it come. Let it settle around you like a gentle fog. You're safe. This is not punishment. This is unveiling. Look inward. Slowly, you will notice something strange. Beneath all your desires, beneath all your ambitions, beneath all your fears, there is an ache, not a sharp pain, not a wound inflicted by others, but a quiet, pulsing ache, the ache of incompleteness. This ache has been with you your entire life. It followed you into adulthood. It shaped your dreams. It fueled your longing to be more, have more, feel more. This ache is the reason you believed success would save you. It is the reason you thought wealth would silence the noise. It is the reason you believed the pendulum could be escaped through achievement. But the ache was never external. It was never about circumstances. It was never about wealth. It was always about self, about the part of you that feels alone, inside the vastness of your own mind. Wealth cannot touch that part. Pleasure cannot drown it. Distraction cannot erase it, because the ache is calling you inward, patiently, persistently, endlessly. It is not your enemy, it is your teacher. And for the first time in your life, you are finally listening. Stay here with me. Don't retreat. Don't fill this moment with thought. Just notice. Notice the space inside you. Notice the distance between your thoughts and your awareness. Notice how the mind keeps reaching for something, even now. A memory, a future, a judgment, a story. Anything but this moment. The mind is addicted to movement. It is terrified of stillness, because in stillness it loses the illusion of control. This is the root of the pendulum. Not desire itself, but the refusal to sit with awareness. You have mistaken your thoughts for your identity. You have mistaken your desires for your purpose. You have mistaken the pendulum for yourself. But you are not the swing. You are the space through which it moves. You are not the wanting. You are the witness of wanting. You are not the pain. You are the consciousness that notices pain. You are not the boredom. You are the awareness that feels it without becoming it. This is the beginning of waking up. Feel what is happening now. It is subtle, soft, almost silent. The story you've carried your whole life is beginning to crumble. The story of, I will be enough when. The story of, I must keep striving, or I will fall behind. The story of, my worth lies in what I gain. These stories have been the walls of your identity. Thin walls, fragile walls, but walls you trusted. Now you see the cracks. You see how every goal was another attempt to outrun the ache. You see how every desire was another escape from the present moment. You see how every achievement was a temporary bandage on a wound that was never physical. The illusion is collapsing, and it feels like standing on the edge of an inner cliff. A quiet trembling beneath your ribs. A sense that you are losing something you never truly had. Good. Let it fall. Let the stories dissolve, like dust returning to the earth. You don't need them anymore. Now something else begins. Something gentler. Something unexpected. A softening. Not happiness. Not excitement. Not clarity. Just softness. A loosening. A slight distance between you and your thoughts. A tiny breath of space between you and the pendulum. You are beginning to see, not from the mind, but from awareness. Awareness is not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't force revelation. It simply reveals what has always been here. The ache, the longing, the cycle, the silence beneath it all. And you begin to understand that the silence was never the enemy. It was the doorway. The mind tries to pull you back. It says, this is pointless. This is uncomfortable. This is too quiet. This is dangerous. But that's because the mind only knows how to function. When it is busy, silence threatens its authority. Awareness exposes its illusions. Stillness reveals its fragility. So instead of thinking, just see. See the thoughts passing like clouds. See the desires rising like waves. See the restlessness trying to pull you outward. But remain where you are, in the quiet, in the soft center, in the space that watches without becoming. The pendulum moves, but you don't. And this is the descent. Schopenhauer never described, but always pointed toward the descent into the observer, the awareness beneath the storm. Something remarkable happens here, something quiet, something profound. You begin to feel a faint calm, not the excitement of getting what you want, and not the numbness of boredom, but something entirely different. A calm that does not depend on pleasure. A calm that does not collapse into emptiness. A calm that has no opposite. It feels like a soft light, radiating from behind your thoughts, like a deeper you, emerging from a long sleep. It does not erase your desires. It simply loosens their grip. It makes them transparent, like shadows dancing on a wall you no longer mistake for reality. The calm says nothing. It just is. And for the first time, you sense who you might be, without the pendulum. Not a seeker, not an achiever, not a creature of endless hunger, but awareness itself, still, silent, unmoved. You've descended far enough now to see the doorway. It isn't wide, it isn't glowing, it isn't grand. It is ordinary, subtle, easy to miss. A doorway into a perception, where the pendulum no longer defines you, where wealth cannot seduce you, where desire cannot enslave you, where silence becomes a companion instead of a threat. We will step through that doorway soon, but not yet. First, you must let this descent settle within you. You must feel the ground beneath your awareness. You must recognize the space that has always been here, but rarely noticed, because liberation is not a destination, it is a shift, a quiet turning of the inner head, a recognition, and you're almost there. Now the descent is complete. The noise has thinned. The mind has lost its authority. The pendulum is still swinging somewhere in the background, but you are no longer inside its arc. You are watching, noticing, resting in a space quieter than thought. This is the moment where most people turn back, where the familiar world of desire feels safer than the unknown quiet, where motion feels more comfortable than stillness. But you're still here, so let's take one more step. Not forward, not upward, but inward, into the place where liberation begins. Not with triumph, not with answers, not with enlightenment, but with a shift, a gentle, almost imperceptible shift in how you see everything. You may have expected liberation to feel like achievement, a goal reached, a box checked, a final success that earns you rest. But liberation is not earned. It is not won. It is not achieved through effort or desire. It is allowed. It is received. It happens the moment you stop trying to force the world, to satisfy an inner hunger it never created. Liberation begins the moment you see. The pendulum is not your master. It is your habit. A habit of chasing. A habit of resisting. A habit of believing you lack something that was never missing. And when this habit loosens, something extraordinary happens. You stop running. You stop reaching. You stop fearing the silence. Because the silence becomes a doorway instead of a prison. Look at your desires now, as if they were small flames in the distance. See how faint they look, how harmless, how absurdly temporary. Every desire that once dominated your life is suddenly just a passing ripple in awareness, a spark that rises and fades without demanding a story. You don't need to chase it anymore. You don't need to extinguish it either. You simply watch it appear and disappear. And in watching, something dawns on you. You were never seeking the object of desire. You were seeking the feeling behind it, the feeling of relief, the momentary quiet, the temporary stillness. But now you're standing in stillness itself. No object required, no achievement needed. What you sought was a state of being, and that state was always already here. Feel that. The tension you've carried for years is loosening, unraveling, melting like ice under warm light. The inner war. The war between pain and boredom, between wanting and having, between longing and loss, begins to dissolve. Why? Because the war was never external. It was never between you and the world. It was between you and your own mind. The mind that demanded motion. The mind that feared silence. The mind that believed peace must be earned. But now you see the innocence of that illusion. The mind wasn't your enemy. It was just afraid. Afraid of vanishing. Afraid of losing the story that gave it meaning. And when you stop fighting it, the mind softens. It becomes keener, less aggressive, more transparent. And in that transparency, stillness appears, not as an achievement, but as your natural state. Now you understand something that most wealthy people never realize. Money can buy comfort, but it cannot buy stillness. It can buy pleasure, but it cannot end desire. It can build a kingdom, but it cannot dissolve the ache within. Wealth doesn't end suffering. It only changes its flavor. The poor man suffers from not having. The rich man suffers from not feeling. But here, in this quiet awareness, you see the truth neither of them sees. The ache was never caused by life. It was caused by identification. Identification with the pendulum, with thought, with desire, with the illusion that I am not enough. Now you stand in the only place where wealth has no power and poverty has no meaning, the space of pure awareness. Here the rich lose their misery. Here the poor lose their longing. Here the pendulum becomes irrelevant, because awareness is not affected by its swing. It watches. It remains. It does not move, and neither do you. Look around you, not with your eyes, but with the quietness behind them. The world has not changed, but something in you has. You notice that life feels lighter, less demanding, less threatening. You notice that moments stretch longer, as if time itself has softened. You notice that your breath feels fuller, as if you've been holding it for years. Without realizing, you notice that ordinary things, light on a wall, the hum of a distant sound, the stillness between your thoughts, feel strangely profound, not because they are special, but because you are finally here to witness them. Presence reveals the beauty that desire blinds you to, and suddenly, without searching for it, you feel a quiet sense of joy. Not excitement, not triumph, not ecstasy, but joy, the kind that arises when nothing is missing. This is the truth most seekers overlook. Awakening is not an event, it is a recognition that the one who was suffering was a thought, a story, a self-image built from desire and fear, a recognition that the awareness watching your life was always free, always untouched, always whole. And the moment you see this, even for a single breath, something ancient within you relaxes. The chase stops. The searching ends. The pendulum becomes background noise. And in its absence, you realize peace was never hiding from you. You were hiding from peace. Now imagine stepping back into your life. With this awareness, you still have goals. You still have dreams. You still experience desire. But you no longer believe that any of it will complete you. So the goals become lighter, the dreams become playful, the desires become optional. Life becomes movement without desperation, action without addiction, presence without fear. You can enjoy wealth without being owned by it. You can pursue success without being imprisoned by it. You can experience desire without confusing it for identity. You become free in the only way that matters. Free from the compulsion to escape yourself. Now the journey reaches its end, not with revelation, but with quiet recognition. You are sitting in a room that looks exactly the same as it did when you started. Nothing outside has changed, but inside, the landscape is different, calmer, clearer, wider. The pendulum is still there. It still moves. It still swings between longing and loss. But you are not the pendulum. You are the space in which it moves. You are the awareness behind the ache. You are the stillness that desire can no longer disturb. This is the liberation Schopenhauer pointed toward, without ever describing fully freedom not from the world, but from the self that suffers inside it. And now, your entire life shifts, with one simple understanding. You were never chasing success. You were escaping silence. And now that you've stopped running, silence has found you. It always does. When you stop seeking peace,